Hey guys, on today's episode I wanted to go over some upgrades that you can be slotting into the new Dominaria United Commander deck, Painbow. But first, let's take a look at the face commander, Jared Carthalion. He's one of every color for a legendary Planeswalker. For +1, you get a 3/3 Kavu token with Trample that's all colors. His -3 loyalty ability is choose up to 2 target creatures. For each of them, put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of colors it is. And finally, his ultimate ability is -6, return target multicolored card from your graveyard to your hand. If that card was all colors, draw a card and create 2 treasure tokens. Finally, Jared Carthalion can be your commander. So Jared Carthalion's true strengths are in his first 2 loyalty abilities, making tokens and putting +1/+1 counters on creatures. His ultimate ability is okay, but you only get to return 1 multicolored card from your graveyard to your hand, and you really only bank off of it if it's all colors. So we're really just going to focus on the first 2 loyalty abilities. Now before we get into this list, I did have one honorable mention, and that is Reese the Redeemed. Reese the Redeemed is 1 Selesnya for a 1/1 legendary creature elf warrior. So for 2 and a Selesnya, you tap him, put a 1/1 green and white elf warrior creature token into play. For 4 and 2 Selesnya, you tap him, for each creature token you control, put a token into play that's a copy of that creature. Reese is going to be really helpful with doubling up on our Kavu tokens. So for example, let's say we had 3 Kavu tokens on the field. We then use Reese the Redeemed's secondary ability and double up on them, so we make another 3 Kavu tokens. Next turn we make 6 Kavu tokens with Reese's secondary ability. Then we make 12, then 24, then 48, and you see where this is going. So as you can imagine, Reese is really going to help us swarm our opponents with Kavu. Now the reason this card is an honorable mention is because of 2 things. 1, he requires somewhat of a build around, so that way his secondary ability can be used to the fullest. Meaning you already need some tokens out in the field, so that way you can really start banking off of Reese's secondary ability. And my second reason is that Reese's doubling effect requires 6 mana to do on each turn. 6 mana is a good chunk of mana. Especially if you only have like 7 or 8 lands in the field, most of your turn is going to be used toward using Reese's ability. Nonetheless, I still think this was a card worth mentioning. Moving on to the list itself, here are 5 upgrades for Jared Carthalion. Keep in mind that this list is just my opinion and that these cards are in no particular order. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Coming in at number 5 is Chromatic Orrery. Now because this deck is all colors, we're going to need as much help as we can with fixing our mana. Running things like Birds of Paradise and Arcane Signet are a must-have. However, I would also highly recommend Chromatic Orrery. So Chromatic Orrery is 7 for a legendary artifact. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color. Tap, add 5 Wasteland. 5, tap, draw a card for each color among permanents you control. So let's start from the top. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color. This is really going to help us out with our mana fixing because we're an all-color deck. So lands, mana dorks, and mana rocks produce any color we want. Tapping for 5 mana of any color is also a good chunk of mana and can really help us cast our Haymaker spells. And the last ability, 5, tap, draw a card for each color among permanents you control, is also going to be really helpful. Literally just for having our commander out in the field, we're going to be drawing 5 cards since Jared Carthalion is 5 colors. That's a good chunk of draw right there. So Chromatic Orrery fixes our mana, it's a big mana rock, and it's a card draw engine. This is nothing but value on the field. Coming in at number 4, we got Ramos Dragon Engine. Ramos Dragon Engine is 6 for a 4/4 legendary artifact creature dragon. Flying. Whenever you cast a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Ramos Dragon Engine for each of that spell's colors. Remove 5 +1/+1 counters from Ramos, add 2 mana of every color to your mana pool. Activate this ability only once each turn. This is downright insane. The more colors we have in our spells, the faster Ramos is going to get huge. Literally just by casting 1 all-colored card, Ramos will get the 5 counters, and right then and there we can remove them and add 10 mana to our mana pool. That is a surge of mana. At that point we can pretty much just cast whatever we want. and run away with the game. Definitely a must-have for this deck. Coming in at number 3, we got Doubling Season. Doubling Season is helping out in almost every way. Jared Carthalion makes Kavu tokens, you can make double the amount of Kavu tokens. Jared Carthalion puts +1/+1 counters on creatures, you get to put double the amount of +1/+1 counters on creatures. Also, with Doubling Season on the field, your Planeswalkers enter in with double the amount of loyalty on them, meaning you get to ult most of them right away, making it really difficult for your opponents to win. Coming in our number 2 spot is Nicol Bolas, Dragon God. Nicol Bolas is not only card advantage for us, he's card disadvantage to our opponents. He has built-in creature and planeswalker removal, and he's a win con on his own. In addition to all of that, he has all loyalty abilities of all planeswalkers on the field, meaning he can act as a second Jared Carthalion. So you can pump out even more Kavu tokens or put even more counters on creatures you control. And that's not even including any other planeswalker that may be on the field. Remember, Nicol Bolas has all of their loyalty abilities. And if you just wanted to run a second Jared Carthalion in your deck, Spark Double is definitely up your alley. And our number 1 spot goes to Otha Teferi. Otha Teferi is 3, a white and a blue for a legendary enchantment. When Otha Teferi enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent you control. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And the most important part, you may activate the loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control twice each turn rather than only once. Doubling up on Jared Carthalion's loyalty abilities is going to be really helpful. And Otha Teferi only gets better the more planeswalkers we have on the field. And if we really want it to be redundant, some other ways that you can copy your Planeswalker's activated abilities are Lithoform Engine, Rings of Bright Earth, and the Chain Veil. But those were some cards that I would add to the 99 of Jared Carthalion. And guys, thank you so much for supporting this channel. And as always guys, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.